I'm Michael Turner, Mike, to everyone who knew me back then. 12 years ago, I was a man splitting himself in half. By day, I worked the dock at a warehouse, slinging freight until my shoulders screamed. At night, I bussed tables at a local restaurant, running plates back and forth while the kitchen heat soaked into my bones. I was clocking 80 hours a week, surviving on vending machine coffee and 3 hours of sleep at a time, telling myself it was for my family, for Hadley, for Jenna. But the truth is, my sacrifice was never enough. Hadley came from money, or at least the shadow of it. Her father had a decent-sized fortune, and she carried that sense of entitlement like a second skin. Our house was modest, our furniture practical, and every time she looked around, I could see the disappointment flicker across her face like she was trapped in some motel room instead of a home. She'd leave glossy catalogs on the counter, diamond pendants circled in red ink, high-end appliances she insisted were investments. I'd come home from a double shift and find those catalogs waiting for me like report cards, proof that no matter how many hours I worked, I was failing her exam. "Mike," she'd say, tapping a manicured finger on the page, "you think my dad would ever let my mom live like this? We can't keep settling." Settling. That word cut deeper than any freight strap ever did. Settling was a roof over our heads, food in the fridge, bills somehow paid on time. Settling was me crawling home half dead, so she and Jenna didn't have to worry. The worst part? She pulled Jenna into it. Our little girl, bright-eyed, always drawing, always humming to herself, started parroting her mother's lines before she even understood them. "Daddy, why can't we get a new car like Grandpa's? Daddy, Mom says other dads take their families to the beach. Daddy, can we get the big TV? The one at the store?" Each no, I had to give her turned into another bullet Hadley fired into me. She'd shake her head and mutter, "See, Jenna? This is what happens when a man doesn't know how to provide." I can still hear it. That house was never quiet. It echoed with what I wasn't. Here's the thing, I wasn't weak. I didn't crumble under hard work. I was stubborn, proud, willing to bleed if it meant Jenna had shoes on her feet and school supplies in her backpack. But the scoreboard in our house wasn't measured in love or time or presence. It was measured in receipts. And I was always behind. I remember one night in particular. I came home past midnight, hands raw from cardboard cuts, my back screaming. Hadley was waiting on the couch, a stack of bills spread across the coffee table. She didn't ask how my shift went. She didn't ask if I'd eaten. "Mike, look at this. Look at these numbers. Do you realize how far behind we are? This isn't living. This is scraping by." I wanted to tell her that scraping by was still surviving, that some men didn't even manage that. But the words caught in my throat. Instead, I sat down, stared at those bills, and wondered how much more of me it would take before she finally said, "Enough. The warehouse, the restaurant, missed dinners, missed bedtimes, missed moments with Jenna that I could never get back. And for what? To stand in a kitchen that felt like a showroom for things we didn't own, with a wife who treated me like a failed audition? Looking back now, I should have seen it, the crack forming under the weight of all that resentment. But at the time, I kept my head down, convinced that if I just pushed harder, if I just broke myself a little more, maybe she'd finally see the man standing in front of her instead of the one she kept comparing me to. But Hadley never saw me. Not really. She only saw what I wasn't. And that was the start of everything that came later. Jenna turned 10 on a Saturday, and I wanted that day to be hers. I wasn't going to let my long hours or her mother's sharp tongue ruin it. So I rented out the back room of a pizza joint downtown, the kind of place with red vinyl booths, soda pitchers sweating on the tables, and arcade machines flashing in the corner. I blew up balloons myself, tied them to chairs, set out paper hats and napkins with cartoon candles printed on them. Nothing fancy, but I could already picture Jenna's smile. And when she walked in, it was everything I hoped for. She lit up like someone had flipped a switch, ran straight to the balloons, laughed so hard she snorted, and hugged me around the waist, whispering, "Thanks, Daddy." That moment, that was enough for me. But not for Hadley. She stood off to the side, arms folded, lips pressed so thin they looked carved from stone. She didn't smile, didn't clap when Jenna blew out the candles. Didn't even pick up a slice of pizza. When the kids were playing skee-ball, she leaned in close and hissed, "This is embarrassing, Mike. A Chuck E. Cheese knockoff? She's 10, not 5. What do you think the other parents are saying right now?" I kept my voice even. "They're saying their kids are having a good time. That's what matters." She rolled her eyes like I just missed the obvious point. What matters is setting standards. She should be having her birthday at the country club, not a greasy pizza parlor. I wanted to snap back. Wanted to tell her that the only standard worth a damn was seeing Jenna happy. But I bit my tongue. I wasn't going to ruin my daughter's day with a fight. Still, Hadley's words dug deep. They always did. By the time the last balloon had popped and the kids had gone home clutching goodie bags, my chest felt tight. Not just from her criticism, but from the way my body had been betraying me lately. It started small, shortness of breath after a long shift, a racing heart that wouldn't slow even when I sat down. But now it felt like a freight train barreling through my ribcage. My hands shook when I tried to clean up the table. Hadley noticed, not with concern but with suspicion. "You all right? You look like hell." I brushed it off. "Just tired." The truth came later, in a doctor's office that smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. Blood pressure through the roof. Heart working overtime like the rest of me. "You need to reduce stress," the doctor said, as if I could just clock out of my life. I mentioned counseling, thinking maybe if we sat down with a professional, Hadley would hear how her constant demands and comparisons were crushing me. She scoffed. "Counseling? Mike, what we need is more money, not some shrink telling us to talk about our feelings. Get serious." That was our marriage in one exchange. I asked for a bridge, she asked for granite countertops. I wanted help, she wanted proof of income. The chest pain kept coming, like a warning I couldn't ignore. But I swallowed it down, strapped on my boots, and went back to the dock, then the restaurant. Because quitting wasn't in my blood. And because no matter how much Hadley belittled me, I wasn't going to let Jenna grow up thinking her dad didn't show up. That night, after her party, Jenna hugged me again. "Best birthday ever, Daddy," she said, while Hadley was already scrolling on her phone. For a second, her words quieted everything. The pounding in my chest, the buzzing in my ears, even the knot of anger building under my ribs. But deep down, I knew what Hadley would say the next morning, and the morning after that, and the one after that. "Not enough, Mike. Never enough." And that was the kind of stress no doctor's advice could fix. The divorce papers came when Jenna was 14. By then, I was too tired to fight in court. Hadley's lawyer painted me as a man who struggled to provide. Like working 2 jobs was some kind of character flaw instead of the reason she had power bills paid and food on the table. The judge didn't see the late nights, the skipped meals, the chest pain that woke me up at 3 in the morning. He saw the bank statements, the debt, the absence of country club memberships, and he stamped the papers. Hadley got the house. She got the new car I'd barely driven. She got custody with weekends thrown my way like table scraps. I got a small 2-bedroom apartment on the south side, cheap carpet that smelled like mildew, and a fridge that hummed louder than the TV. Then came Aiden Clark. The man pulled into Hadley's driveway in a red Ferrari the week after our divorce finalized. Like he'd been waiting for the ink to dry. Midlife crisis on wheels, but to Hadley, he was proof that she'd traded up. To Jenna, he was a magician. Suddenly, there were box seats at ball games, vacations in Paris, poolside cabanas in Cabo. He bought her a purebred puppy that cost more than 3 months' rent at my place. When Jenna came to visit me, I tried to hold on to what mattered. We'd go to the science museum or catch a matinee, or make popcorn and watch old movies. I'd pack sandwiches for the park, play catch, try to remind her that life didn't have to be a luxury ad to be real. But every visit turned into a comparison chart. "Aiden says we're going to Paris next summer. Aiden's pool is heated. Yours isn't even a pool. Aiden says if you want something, you make it happen." I wanted to tell her that making it happen wasn't magic. It was debt, it was performative wealth, it was shallow. But those words wouldn't land with a 14-year-old dazzled by shopping sprees and first-class flights. Instead, I kept showing up. Showed up with time, with attention, with the stubborn belief that love wasn't measured by receipts. I sat in her bleachers during school plays, even when she barely glanced my way. I drove her to practice and bought her favorite milkshakes after. I thought maybe if I just stayed steady, she'd see it. But Hadley knew how to play the game. She turned every one of my no's into another lesson about what a real provider looked like. If I said no to an iPhone, Hadley made sure Jenna got one from Aiden, and then made sure Jenna knew who really cared. It burned. Not just the rejection, but the helplessness. The anger coiled tight inside me like barbed wire. I could take Hadley's contempt, but seeing Jenna look at me like I was less, like my worth was capped by what I could swipe on a credit card, that broke me in a way I didn't let anyone see. One night, after I dropped her off at Hadley's house, Jenna barely said goodbye. She was already running up the driveway to show Aiden her new designer bag. I sat in my car, hands gripping the wheel so hard the plastic creaked, and thought, this is what it feels like to be replaced. I didn't yell. I didn't chase after her. I drove back to my apartment, walked inside, and sat in the dark. The hum of the fridge filled the silence. That's when it hit me, not just the anger, but the cost. Years of work, years of sacrifice, and I wasn't just losing a marriage. I was losing my daughter to a man with a shinier wallet. Still, I refused to vanish. I mailed her letters even when she didn't respond. I kept her spot ready in the apartment even when she canceled visits last minute. I tried to plant seeds of memory, of presence, even if they didn't take root right away. Because I wasn't going to let a Ferrari, or a vacation, or a damn diamond bracelet erase me. But deep down, I knew the scoreboard wasn't in my favor. Love had become a marketplace, and I didn't have the currency to compete. And that's when I realized, being a father in Hadley's world wasn't about being there. It was about buying your way in. And no matter how much I worked, I was never going to afford the price of admission. Jenna picked the place. White tablecloths you could see your face in, waiters who glide instead of walk, water with a resume, imported, mineral, sparkling, still. I put on my best shirt and shined my boots because a man doesn't slouch when he's meeting his daughter, even if the ground between you is cracked. She arrived 45 minutes late, breezing in with that careful, grown-up confidence rich houses train into their kids. Perfect hair, perfect nails, a perfume that smelled like a department store campaign. She hugged me with her shoulders, not her arms. "Traffic," she said, sitting. "You look good." "Working and sleeping," I said. "That combination will fool people." The waiter recited the specials like he'd written them. I ordered a steak I couldn't quite afford, rare, because I was tired of ordering the safe choice around her. Jenna scanned the menu like a critic and picked something with words in French. When the water came, she chose the bottle you have to pronounce. "How's school?" I asked. "I finished last spring, Dad." A small smile, the kind people use when they don't want to pull a trigger but will. "I told you." "You sent a text," I said. A string of fireworks emojis. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and looked past me, at the room. The place hummed with conversations that sounded expensive. I could already feel the math grinding in my head. Entree, sides, dessert, tip. My chest tightened the way it does when the forklift won't start and the boss wants to know why you didn't make the load time. "Okay," she said finally, setting her phone face down like a ceremony. "I've been thinking a lot about the future." "Good," I said and meant it. Thinking is the cheapest way to move a life. She laughed once, short. Then she slid a folder across the table. Heavy paper. I knew bad news about my weight. "What's this?" I asked, though my hands already knew. "Just clarity." Her voice went soft, practiced. "Aiden wants to adopt me. Symbolic, mostly. He's been there, and it would make some things simpler. Insurance, legal stuff. I know you always want what's best for me." The folder weighted like a coiled thing. I opened it. The words swam for a second. Terminate parental rights, consent, sign here, an initial. It wasn't a request. It was a transfer of title. I didn't speak for a long breath. The violins in the corner swelled. Glasses clinked. Somewhere, a couple laughed like they were the only ones in the room. "You want me to disappear," I said. "I want you to support what's practical," she corrected. "Aiden has always paid," I said. "No heat in it. just a fact laid on the table between us like cutlery. He's always paid. Her jaw tightened. He's taken care of things. There's a difference. Language loves you, I said. It always has. The stakes came. Mine bled properly. Hers looked like art someone forgot to cook. I cut and chewed and tasted nothing. You sign, she said. And I won't have to explain at every office why my legal father is alive, I said. You won't have to explain why the man who raised you is still breathing. Her eyes flashed. Anger, then embarrassment, then something colder. You weren't there enough. I was at the dock, I said. I was at the restaurant. I was at the doctor when my heart sprinted at rest. I was at your school plays, row 3, end seat, because I had to leave early for the night shift. I was there, Jenna. You just learned to measure there in receipts. She leaned back, folded her arms in a way that made her look like Hadley without even trying. Can we not make this dramatic? Just sign, and we can move forward. I laid my knife down, wiped my mouth. I looked at the papers again. There's a special hum in your head when you know you've arrived at a moment that will not unhappen. No, I said, a flicker of surprise, quickly buried. You don't have to be difficult. I'm not being difficult, I said. I'm being a father. I'm keeping my name on what I made. You didn't make me, she said, a small smile, a mean edge. Mom did. Your mother collected things, I said. I carried weight, different gifts. She reached for the folder. Fine, we can do this without you. It'll just take longer. Everything worth a damn does, I said. Silence. The kind that gets noticed. I signaled for the check. The waiter slid it down with 2 fingers like he was dealing a card I wouldn't like. I handed over my card. It left my hand a little too fast. We waited. He came back with that apology face they must train in the back. Soft voice, careful posture. I'm so sorry, sir. Run it again, I said, steady. He ran it again. Came back the same. The room felt louder. I felt smaller for exactly 1 second. Then the anger did what it does when I'm right at the cliff. It sharpened instead of scattering. Try this one, I said, and gave him a backup card I shouldn't have brought. He left again. I didn't look at Jenna. If she was enjoying the show, I wasn't giving her an audience. He came back. Approved. Do you need a receipt? No, I said. I've been keeping those too long. Jenna took her phone back into her hand like a gavel. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm making it real, I said, standing. You asked me to erase myself. I declined. That's not hard. That's clarity. She didn't stand. Didn't hug me. I thought you'd finally do something for me. I rested my hands on the back of the chair and felt the grain bite my palms. I have done almost nothing else. Outside, the night was clean and cold. I called Tom. He answered on the second ring. You okay? He said. Because brothers sometimes hear the scrape in your voice before you do. Card bounced, I said. Pride did not. How much? I told him. He grunted. I'll transfer it now. And Mike? Yeah. Don't sign a damn thing that takes your name off your own blood. Wasn't going to, I said. But she asked like it was a favor. Then teach her what favors aren't, he said, and hung up, because that's how we love short useful. I drove home with the windows cracked, the cold reminding me I was still here. The folder sat on the passenger seat like a cinder block. I should have thrown it away. I didn't. Kept it. A death certificate I refused to sign. When I got to my place, I set the folder on the kitchen counter, ate a piece of bread over the sink, and stood there until the hum of the fridge settled into my bones. I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging. I wasn't breaking. I was angry, clear, alive. And if the next part of my life was going to be written without her applause, then fine. I'd write it in my own hand. The weeks after that dinner hollowed me out. The warehouse let me go. Too many mistakes. Too many late arrivals. Too many shifts where I stood staring at pallets like I'd forgotten what my hands were for. The restaurant manager kept me on a little longer. But when you're dropping plates and zoning out at the register, even a skeleton crew doesn't need you. The 2-bedroom went next. I packed my things into a couple of trash bags and left the rest. The landlord didn't care about excuses. He cared about rent. 3 months on subway benches taught me the shape of shame. You learn fast where the warm grates are, which convenience stores won't kick you out right away, how to wash up in a bathroom without drawing attention. You also learn how people look through you, like you're an empty soda can they're stepping over. At first, I told myself it was temporary, a bad stretch, but nights stack up, and when the only voice you hear is the one in your head, it gets mean. Tells you you're not a man anymore, that your wife was right, your daughter was right. Every unpaid bill and bounced card proved it. One night, I walked to the bridge, hands clamped to the cold rail, city lights blinking on the water like signals from another world. My heart hammered so loud I thought it might give out before I made any choice at all. I wasn't praying. I wasn't calling out to anyone, just standing there, staring down, feeling the pull. That's when I heard the crunch of boots on gravel. A man in an orange safety vest sat down beside me. Hard hat, dirt on his jeans, lunchbox at his side. He didn't ask what I was doing, didn't give me a speech. He just opened the lunchbox, unwrapped a turkey sandwich, and split it in half. "Eat," he said. I took it. My hands were shaking so bad the bread nearly tore. We sat there in silence, chewing. The night air cut through us, the hum of traffic above, the water moving steady below. When I was done, he handed me a napkin. "Name's Sam," he said. "Mike," I managed. He nodded like that was enough. Then he stood, stretched, and headed back to wherever men like him go when the shift isn't finished. No sermon, no rescue, just half a sandwich and proof that I was still visible. And it was enough. Enough to loosen my grip on the rail, enough to take a step back. That night didn't fix me, didn't erase the anger or the loss, but it cracked the silence I'd been drowning in. Reminded me that strangers could still see me, even when the people I loved had turned me into background noise. I walked away from the bridge with the taste of turkey and mustard in my mouth and the smallest flicker of something I hadn't felt in months. Not hope exactly, more like the possibility of it. And sometimes that's all a man needs to decide he's not finished yet. It was my brother Tom who pulled me off the benches for good. Drove 6 hours straight in his beat-up Ford, found me sitting outside a shelter that was already full, and said, "Get in the truck." No lecture, no pity. Just an order the kind brothers know you'll follow. He hauled me to his place, a 2-story fixer-upper with a basement that smelled of concrete dust and old paint. "This is yours," he said, pointing to a cot, a dresser, and a corner with a barbell set that had seen better decades. "Rent's free. The rules are simple. Lift, shower, job hunt, therapy, repeat." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him I didn't need babysitting. But the truth was, I had nothing left to stand on but his rules. So I started. Small weights at first, the kind that make you feel foolish. My arms shook like I was holding up telephone poles. But every rep was a nail hammered into a structure I thought was gone. The soreness became a kind of anchor, proof I was still capable of pushing against something, even if it was just iron. Tom got me into therapy, too. Dr. Linda Hayes, 40-something, direct, no sugarcoating. In the first session, I sat there with my arms crossed, saying nothing. She slid a notebook across the table. "When you can't talk, right?" she said. So I did. Angry scribbles at first. Lists of everything I'd lost. Words that bled into each other until the page tore. But after a while, sentences started forming. "I am tired. I want to be seen. I am not erased." The notebook caught what my lungs couldn't get out. Tom also pushed me to find work. Not just any work, steady work. Said it was time I built something again, not just survived it. I almost laughed when the only opening I found was entry-level logistics. Same grind I'd done before, moving freight, punching clocks. But I showed up early, stayed late, and for once, someone noticed. That someone was Rick Dawson, my boss. Old school, gruff, beard like steel wool. The kind of man who could fix an engine with a wrench and a curse. The first week, he caught me staying past shift, reorganizing pallets. "You trying to win Employee of the Month?" he growled. "No, sir. just didn't like leaving it messy. He stared at me for a long beat, then grunted. Good. Tomorrow you ride with me. Riding with Rick meant learning more than routes. He taught me margins, fuel math, scheduling tricks to shave time without cutting corners. He barked when I screwed up, but he never dismissed me. And every time he trusted me with more, I stood a little taller. Evenings were for the basement, lifting, sweating, filling pages with ink. The structure worked like medicine. Days stacked into weeks, weeks into months, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was drowning. One night, Tom came down to the basement, found me mid-set, veins burning in my arms. He watched for a while, then said, "You're starting to look like yourself again." I racked the bar, chest heaving. "Don't know who that is anymore." He tossed me a towel. "Figure it out one rep at a time." That line stuck. Every rep in that basement was like hoisting a broken beam back into place. Every page I filled in Linda's notebook was another nail holding me together. Every day I showed up for Rick was proof that the man who nearly jumped from a bridge wasn't the man I had to stay. I wasn't fixed. I wasn't healed. But I was building again. Pencil marks at first easy to erase, then ink permanent and steady. And for the first time in a long while, the anger inside me wasn't tearing me apart. It was fuel. I met Rachel in the least cinematic way possible, sitting in HR with a stack of benefits paperwork that read like it was written in another language. Deductible, coinsurance, flexible spending. I'd stared at the forms until the words blurred, ready to walk out and risk paying cash for the rest of my life. Then she sat down. Rachel Bennett. Shoulder-length brown hair, glasses slipping down her nose, a smile that looked like it had been earned, not practiced. "You look like you're trying to translate Latin," she said, pulling up a chair. "Feels like it," I admitted. She spent her lunch break walking me through line after line, patient as a schoolteacher, quick to laugh when I made jokes about selling my kidney to cover vision care. When we finished, I thanked her and tried to slip away quietly, but she asked if I wanted to grab a coffee sometime. That coffee turned into a muffin, which turned into another coffee, which turned into sitting in her kitchen while her daughter Ella worked on math homework and her son Caleb showed me his baseball cards. Rachel was divorced, raising 2 kids with more grit than resources. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel judged when I admitted my past. I told her about Hadley, about Jenna, about the nights on subway benches. I braced myself for the look, pity, or worse, contempt. Instead, Rachel just listened. No verdict, no advice I didn't ask for. She leaned across the table, touched my hand, and said, "That sounds heavy, but you're here now." That was it. No should've. No why didn't you. Just here now. When we finally went on an official date, I picked a small coffee shop with mismatched chairs and string lights in the window. Halfway through my cappuccino, I apologized. "Sorry it's not fancier. I know Hadley always." Rachel cut me off with a laugh. "Mike, I'm here for you, not the receipt." That line nearly floored me, because that was the thing, wasn't it? My whole life with Hadley had been one long invoice. Every gesture is measured against price tags. Every failure tallied in dollars. And here was this woman telling me my presence was enough. Trust didn't come back in a rush. Crept in inch by inch. Ella asked me to help her with fractions. Caleb tosses me the ball in the yard. Rachel let me fix the creaky back door, then made us grilled cheese afterward. A year later, we had a small ceremony in the backyard. String lights hung from the trees, folding chairs borrowed from neighbors, kids chasing fireflies while we read vows we'd written ourselves. Mine were simple. Honesty over everything, time over money, love without invoices. Rachel cried. So did I, though I disguised it as clearing my throat. We bought a modest house together, one with a step that groaned every time you came in the door. Rachel called it the house's way of saying hello. I called it proof we owned something honest, creaks and all. For the first time since I could remember, my life didn't feel like an audition I was failing. Felt like living. And when I laid my head down at night, the hum in my chest wasn't panic or pressure. It was peaceful. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of ordinary day you don't expect to carry a ghost. I was grabbing groceries after work, milk, eggs, a bottle of cheap red Rachel liked for Friday nights. I turned the corner into the wine aisle, and there she was. Jenna, 25 now, immaculate, hair blown out to perfection, nails shining like glass, heels clicking against the polished floor. She wore a blazer that probably cost more than the monthly mortgage on my modest house. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. Then she looked up, saw me, and smiled like someone greeting an old neighbor they hadn't thought about in years. "Dad," she said, her voice light rehearsed. The word hit me in the gut. It had been years since she used it without sarcasm or paperwork attached. "Jenna," I managed. We stood there, two strangers separated by a row of wine bottles. She didn't hug me, just adjusted her bag strap and said, "You look good." "I'm working and sleeping," I said. The same line I'd used years earlier. This time it wasn't a cover, it was the truth. We walked side by side down the aisle. She talked fast like a pitch meeting. Aiden had divorced Hadley. The money had dried up. She'd done some thinking. She was launching a boutique PR firm. She wanted to reconnect. I kept my face calm the way I'd learned in therapy. Let her talk until the shape of it showed. Finally, she stopped near the end of the aisle, turned toward me, and lowered her voice like we were co-conspirators. "It would mean a lot to me if you could help with the renovation costs. Just seed money, father-daughter style." There it was. Not reconnection, not love. An invoice with a smile. I studied her face. The polish was flawless, but underneath I saw the mold. Years of Hadley's training, Aiden's luxury, the kind of entitlement that made love into a contract. "You know," I said, voice steady, "I already signed away being your dad, not on paper, but in the way you demanded it." Her smile faltered. "That's not fair. Fair is showing up when your father's card gets declined at dinner. Fair is asking how I'm doing when I lose everything. Fair is not teaching a child to measure love by receipts." She blinked, and for a second I thought I saw something crack. Then she regrouped, slipped the mask back on. "I'm giving you a chance to be part of my future." I shook my head. "No, you're giving me a chance to invest in the same old story. I've already lived that one, and I'm not paying for a sequel." Her jaw tightened. "I thought maybe you'd changed." "I have," I said. "I stopped buying my place at the table." She crossed her arms, looked past me at the shelves like she was done. "Fine. I thought I'd at least ask." "Good luck with the firm," I said, and I meant it strangely enough, because if she could pull it off without draining me, then maybe she'd finally learn what work really felt like. I grabbed the bottle of wine and headed for the checkout. Walking out into the parking lot, I felt the old anger stir, but it didn't burn me this time. It was different, controlled, like holding a live wire but knowing you're grounded. Because my life is full now. Rachel, Ella, Caleb. A creaky step that I sang when I came home. A family that didn't invoice me for love. And that was worth more than any boutique PR firm, any Paris vacation, any Ferrari in a driveway. For the first time, I realized I wasn't the one starving for her approval anymore. She was starving for mine, and I wasn't serving it. She tried one more time, this time at a diner I picked. No valet parking, no marble floors, no waiters with accents. Just coffee rings on the tables, vinyl booths that squeaked, and pie that came with a side of honesty. Jenna walked in dressed down. Jeans, plain blouse, no glitter. I knew the move, the performance of humility. She slid into the booth, ordered black coffee like she'd been drinking it her whole life, and folded her hands. "I don't want to fight," she said. "I just need a little help, a few thousand to get us back on our feet, just until the firm is steady." There it was again, the task, wrapped this time in softer paper. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. Then I laid out the ledger, not in dollars but in years. The nights on subway benches, the therapy copays, the basement where I lifted myself back into shape, the sandwich a stranger split with me on a bridge when I thought I was done. I clawed my way back from nothing, Jenna, and I won't be an ATM, a fallback, or an investor in the same story that broke me the first time. Her face tightened. "So you're saying no?" I'm saying the only thing I can live with. If you want a relationship, it's got to be real. No price tags. No subsidies. Just you and me. Otherwise, it's nothing at all. She stared at me for a long time, and I saw the war in her eyes. Pride against longing, entitlement against something deeper she didn't want to name. Finally, she looked away. I thought you'd at least want to be part of my success. I stood, dropped a 20 on the table for our coffees. I already am. I'm proof you'll have to succeed without a bailout. I walked out, didn't look back. At home, Rachel and the kids were waiting in the backyard. Ella had strung up paper lanterns, Caleb was setting out sandwiches, and Rachel stood by the grill with a smile that still knocked me off balance. On the picnic table sat a lopsided lemon cake, frosting sliding down one side, candles bent but burning. "Surprise," Rachel said. "We thought you needed a reminder that you're loved." I sat down, let Caleb shove a paper plate into my hands, let Ella light the candles twice because the wind killed them the first time. Rachel kissed my cheek and whispered, "This is the only ledger that counts." The step at the back door groaned when I went in later to grab more napkins. For years, that creak had sounded like failure, like proof of what I couldn't afford to fix. That night, it sounded different. It sounded like gratitude.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.